Hi, everybody. Megan Thompson with Megan Thompson Coaching, and we're here to talk about keeping it together when parenting your highly sensitive child, how to manage yourself before you hit the fan. Um, so if you're here live, let me know, say hi. If you're catching this on the replay, hashtag replay, so that I'm able to see who's watching and staying up with the trainings that I put out. So thanks for watching. So I really wanted to talk about this today because I found a pretty big theme when I speak with parents and whether or not they are able to manage themselves with their child's meltdowns. And one thing that I notice a lot is that parents of highly sensitive kids can really struggle with this worry about whether or not they're focusing on the right thing in the moment. Finding ways to keep it together so that they can teach their child how to manage their emotions. And when we think about the intensity of parenting a highly sensitive kid without the right or effective strategies and system, it can really feel like you're riding a roller coaster, and you're riding through the day just waiting for bedtime or dreading bedtime. It just depends on the kid whether or not bedtime is a huge problem for you, or transitions in general are a huge problem for your child. But either way, parenting a highly sensitive kid can lead you to be very, very exhausted and just feeling fried. And the challenge I see with this with parents is that they feel like they're just holding on and holding it all in, and this can really be quite detrimental to the parent-child relationship. And I wanted to spend some time talking about this because I think it's a pretty big thing that parents overlook. And a lot of the time when I speak to parents, they're really focused on where their child is missing the mark, not necessarily in a way of like assessing what's ineffective for their child, but how to help their child. Parents are asking, how do I help my child change how they express emotions? How do I help my child communicate more effectively? How do I help my child behave more appropriately, not hurt siblings, behave effectively at school or ask for help at school? And, one thing that I really implore you to take a look at is how you're communicating your own emotions with your child, especially when your child's about to have a meltdown or when your child's been having a really hard day. And the biggest things that I notice, kind of can capture those for you in a couple of pretty key critical mistakes that I notice parents making when we're thinking about managing meltdowns and how to get out ahead of them and how to prevent them in the first place. So I wanted to talk about that today. What are the critical mistakes that you're making, as a parent of a highly sensitive child? And again, if you're watching, say hi, drop an emoji, let me know you're here. And the reason that I think it's really important to pay attention to this is that when you're parenting a highly sensitive child, it can be really difficult to see outside of yourself and to take a look introspectively of what it is that you're struggling with as a parent and how to move through that in order to teach your child. And one critical mistake is that parents think that, oh, my kid's not going to notice or can't tell when I'm upset or can't tell that I'm trying to push through and, grin and bear it. We as, when parents of highly sensitive kids get into this survival mode, it can become numbing. Um, you know, Parents tell me all the time that they are close to, or if not numb to, the fact that their child is having meltdowns on a daily basis or multiple times a day. It's a matter of fact, this has to happen or it's going to happen, just waiting with bated breath or holding their breath of when it's going to happen. It's not a matter of when. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when you get to that point, you really stop thinking about the fact that your child notices whether or not you're upset or whether or not you're stressed or whether or not you're angry, because for you in that moment it's about survival. And so you're railroading your own emotions in that point, and you're railroading your own perspective that I can hold this together. I'm the adult, I can keep it together, I can manage it. But the critical mistake you're making at this point is that your child does notice. When you think about the fact that your kid might not notice, that's not an effective perspective. When we think about this, the next challenge is when parents can kind of talk themselves into, or I hear spouses not being on the same page, is that their kid will persevere, that their highly sensitive child will move through that, even though mommy or daddy is angry, or, parents are angry. Um, Caretaker's angry. Oh, hi Jenny. Thanks for watching. Glad you're joining. That, my kid will be able to keep it together if I'm upset. And being a highly sensitive child, your child is not going to be able to feed off of your emotion and then move through their own emotion as well. So it is critical for you to manage yourself, and to not roll through that tension and that intensity of your emotion, and to really take a very clear look at what it is that you're dealing with on a daily basis, and how you can manage your own emotions more effectively. Hi, Chelsea. Glad you can make it live. That's awesome. Um, so, the next critical mistake that I notice is that parents feel like their moods are separate from their child's. Now, this is kind of a tongue twister, and I want to take some time to break this down for you. But a lot of the time, parents of highly sensitive kids can really feel like, well, I'm my own parent, I'm my own human, I'm my own person, and I feel my own feelings. And my highly sensitive child feels their own feelings too, and they're separate from mine. And when parents are dealing with increased meltdowns, and meltdowns are happening daily, that's actually a function, or a symptom of dysfunction in the family. And what it really means is that your emotions are enmeshed with your child's. So this is what when parents come to me and they say, we had a hard day, or we had really big feelings today, when they are describing their own child's meltdowns, or when I ask them about their child, they say, sometimes we have big feelings. That is a very clear indicator to me that the parent and the child are feeling the same feelings at the same time, or identifying so closely that it is hard for them to separate. And so if you are making that mistake, if that is a linguistic or a language tendency that you have, that is a very clear indicator that you as a parent are not separating yourself from your child's emotions. And as a result, your child feels like they cannot separate themselves from your emotions. And so when we think about child development, raising a child from infancy through adulthood, it is very, very important for the child as infant and young child to feel like they can separate from the parent and come back. Excuse me. That is a natural phase in the development, and it is constantly tested. I can walk away and I can come back. I can walk away and I can come back. And we see this as children grow up, even as infants, when our kids were toddling or crawling, they turn to look at us and they see, oh, is mommy still watching? And if not, and if so, then I can keep on crawling. But if mommy's not still watching, I don't know if I'm safe enough. And so therefore, I don't really know if I can go any further, because my mommy is supposed to be keeping me safe. And so if my mommy feels the same fear that I feel as a, toddling 6 to 12 month old, then depending on who was born first, um, then I don't know that I'm secure in making any changes, or I don't know that I'm secure in growing any further from here. And so when parents of highly sensitive kids ride the roller coaster of emotions with their child, and go through that intensity and feel exhausted at the end of the day, and feel incapable of changing out of the cycle, your moods are not separate from your child's. And so that is a critical mistake that you're making if you feel like you can hold it together, but your kid can't, but your feelings and the emotions rolling through the day are just that, a roller coaster. So I have to get very pointed with this, because it kind of wraps back into this myth that being highly sensitive means meltdowns, and it's a thing that I've talked about more in depth in another training, but it really fires me up when parents bring that back, because it is not the truth. Your child is emotionally flooded when they are having a meltdown. It is not developmentally appropriate beyond age 4 for meltdowns to happen, regardless of whether or not your child is highly sensitive. And so if you are melting down too, then this is a critical mistake you're making, to think that you can separate your own emotions from your child's, if they are, if you're riding the wave with your child. And so I really wanted to give you guys the support to recognize what it is that you need to do differently, because this is huge. A thing that I hear a lot from parents, and I don't know why I'm like super adjusting my body today. I guess I'm not comfy in my chair. Lots of fidgets. If a lot of the time, and I don't want to be gender exclusive here, but I speak to a lot of moms on the phone, and there's a lot of dads who just don't get it. And so I'm just going to speak to my experience, but please know that if you're a same-sex couple or I'm not trying to be heteronormative here. I'm just speaking from the experience in terms of the parents who get on the phone with me. Um, a lot of the time, one parent in the parenting relationship is holding in that tension and not sharing the intensity of the difficulty that you're experiencing with your spouse or your co-parent, your partner in parenting. And when this happens, it really inhibits your child from creating that ability to manage his or her own emotions. Because when both parents, and if we think about both parents being the rock of the family, if they're not on the same page, or they don't know that one parent is flaring up way more intensely and a lot more consistently than they perceive, then that is a really big problem in the parenting relationship and in the child's ability to manage his or her own emotions. And so when we think about that, it's really important to pay attention to how frequently you're communicating with your spouse and or co-parent. What I want to talk about this is that when you hold it all in, when you act as the warrior parent, when you are trying to steamroll your own emotions in order to be that rock, in order to be that bedrock of the family, and you're not sharing how difficult it is with your partner in this experience, then your partner feels like everything's cool, everything's working fine, or maybe it just has different perspectives. So we really have to, in terms of the fourth critical mistake is really not communicating effectively with your teammate as a family. Because when we think about that, and this is of course, a no judgment zone. This is not a sense of telling you're doing something wrong to shame you or what have you. A lot of the time I speak to parents where it's two ships passing in the night. You guys are both fried. You're tag teaming. You're not on the same page because you can't actually be in the same room. And by the time you get to the end of the night, you're exhausted. You're passing out on the couch. I mean, this is huge, and it's really important to recognize that this is not how parenting a highly sensitive child needs to be. So I really wanted to call pretty big attention to that in order to help you understand why this strategy is so important and why honing it can be really effective in changing the dynamic of your household. And so when we think about that, the next thing to notice is to pay attention to this four-step strategy. You really want to be able to pay attention to how to move out of this feeling like you are just riding along that roller coaster. You're in the car with your kid, or maybe even sometimes you're the one driving because you're upset, and that you realize that caused the meltdown. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to take a minute and recognize that you have control in that moment, even if your child has no control over his or her own emotions. And when we recognize that, when you pay attention to your own emotions, that's step one, is that it's really important for you to notice that when you're carrying that intense feeling in your body, or that intense emotion, and not acknowledging it, you're rolling over it, and your child kind of like takes that in. We think about recognizing parents of a highly sensitive child know that highly sensitive children feed off the energy in the household. Research shows that the parenting environment, when it is consistently negative or consistently conflictual or consistently overwhelming or just more overwhelming than happy, highly sensitive children start to think negatively about themselves, start to notice what's not working in the family, start to be focused on what's not working for themselves, start to only report to parents about the one tiny thing that went poorly and not all the 700 amazing things that went well in terms of how the school is going for them, even if things go well for them at school. It's just constant, and the research supports what I hear from parents over and over and over again, and what kids in my private practice say the same thing, that without teaching parents how to manage their emotions, step one. The next thing is step two, is to notice your body language. Because if you don't know how you're communicating that emotion through your face, especially through your face, then you're not going to be able to teach your child how to do the same. you're not going to be able to advocate for your child to do the same, or to notice that and to teach them after the fact. And without that skill, you won't be able to help your child feel supported in the moment, because when you're giving side eye, or you're taking deep breaths, or you're, holding it all in, and your shoulders are raised, and your highly sensitive child notice that. I mean, come on, it's pretty obvious. But, because I'm exaggerating, but your highly sensitive child is picking up on those subtleties. So you really need to pay attention to that and not railroad it. And then the next thing, step 3 is to really decrease the emotional result in your body. You have that option. You have that choice to not allow that emotion to dictate your behavior. And so obviously this is really hard to do, but when you dial it in, when you can recognize that, then it is absolutely critical at helping your child manage their own emotions. It leads, it's the very first step. It leads to teaching parents how to validate, because if you can't identify your own emotions, if you can't decrease the intensity you feel in your body, if you can't decrease the intensity of that negative emotion, then there's no way to snap out of it. And there's no way to help your child snap out of it either. And I'm not trying to say suck it up. That's the exact opposite of what I teach. And you guys should know that at this point. But what I'm getting at here is teaching you to recognize that you do not have to choose to suffer in those moments. And that's the fourth perspective, is to choose to change your perspective in that moment. That the 4 steps in terms of changing how things are going, you can absolutely change your perspective in terms of what you're viewing your child's emotional expression to be. Choosing not to allow yourself to believe that they're manipulating you, or choosing not to allow yourself to perceive your child as giving you a hard time. It's very, very hard to get out of that pattern. And when you dial it in and you stay consistent, and you hold in that grit, or you get support to help you do it, then it can be a game changer. And when I say can, like, it is a game changer. I don't even know why I said can, because when we know as parents that we can choose our own emotions, we can allow our initial emotional reaction to come and then choose something different thereafter, then the whole world opens up in terms of how you can change your relationship with your child. Because the very thing that you're trying to teach your kid is going to be impossible if you can't get this dialed in for yourself. So I wanted to give you guys that opportunity to reach out for support and to communicate with me what it is that you're struggling with, and to manage that more effectively with your family. And so you have that opportunity to speak with me and schedule a call. Get on the phone and we'll talk about what it is that you're struggling with, where you want to be, and whether or not I could help you. And if that's the case, then of course I'll tell you how. But if it's not, and there's something more effective, then I'll show you in that respect as well. So it's really important to pay attention to recognizing that this is, while it's not easy, it is simple. There is a 4-step strategy to dialing this in, and I just reviewed it with you. But it really requires a heck of a lot of work and determination. And so, this kind of result is not for everybody. There are some families I get on the phone with who are just interested in hearing about life, how life could be, but they're really not that committed. And so I have to implore you to recognize, what is it that you want for your family? What life did you want when you pictured having kids? And if this is not the life that you're creating, then you need to take a really clear look at what you can be doing differently, even if that means getting support, or changing how you see your child's emotions, and changing your perspective of your child's behavior in order to reach a different result. Because we all know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if it feels like you're just consistently trying the same old things, or using the same old methods to find new things to try, then it's probably time to seek support. So guys, I hope that this was supportive and helpful for you, and gave you some help in identifying what it is and what it takes to change the dynamic in your household. And I'd love to be able to support you in any way that I can. And I'll put the link below in the comments here, so that you get that opportunity to speak with me if you feel like it's time. So Actually, if I'm savvy enough, I can do it while we're on the line. But my daughter came in the house with my husband and she was yelling for mommy, so I do have to run. It is time for me to have bedtime duty. So she's been looking forward to talking to me all day, I'm sure. All right, guys, have a good night and I will talk to you again. Thanks. Bye.